I wouldn't give to Heifer International. Apparently, nor would Deniz Bolbol, who is an activist in the San Francisco Bay Area, an organizer, co-director of the grassroots group Citizens for Cruelty-Free Entertainment, which is known by many to have comprehensively documented on video Ringling Brothers' circus abuse of animals. And her video is being used as evidence in the upcoming federal animal abuse lawsuit against Ringling Brothers. 4 years ago, Deniz spearheaded the campaign to rescue the elephants at the San Francisco Zoo, which resulted in the closure of the elephant exhibits and transfer of the surviving elephants to a sanctuary. And she works with activists around the country to rescue elephants from zoos, and most recently she led the fight to reform the beleaguered San Francisco Zoo and transform it to the world's first animal welfare-focused rescue zoo. Her quest for that continues. We'll get to that in a little bit. But right now, I think that Deniz Bolbol would advise you not to send a donation to Heifer International. Why not, Deniz? All the cute little pictures, aren't they happy animals and happy children?
Well, it's very misleading. Thank you for addressing this issue, Bob. As you said, Heifer International is having record success in terms of fundraising, and this year, so far, back in July, they reported raising over $126 million. Bill and Melinda Gates gave them $42 million this year alone, and what we're seeing is all these pretty pictures of kids hugging animals, but that's not the reality. We know that's not the reality of how these animals are being treated, and not to mention the intention behind Heifer International is to give animals so that the people can use them, kill them, and wear them in some cases. And so basically it's bad for the animals, it's bad for the environment, and it's just plain bad.
Isn't that the way to feed the hungry in the underprivileged world?
Well, we all know, and the UN has come out with reports in the past, in the recent past, and it's well documented that to feed animals in order to eat them wastes water resources and food resources, and it's just a very expensive proposition. So to be giving animals to the poorest countries in the world in order to have them, get them addicted to meat and get them to be eating animal products, and then call that helping them, it's just ludicrous, because we know that that's a waste of resources, that it would be far more beneficial to help these people to grow food, to teach them to grow food that they can eat, and there's bio-intensive gardening. There are all sorts of different things that we could be helping these poor people to become self-sustaining without getting them involved in animal agriculture.
So people may not be familiar with Heifer International. They ship animals? Who?
So it's a Christian-based organization. They really work through the churches. It's a Christian-based program that basically allows you to make a donation. It could be buy a cow for $250, and then they're going to go and get a cow and give it to some poor country. Or you could buy a portion of a cow. So you could buy 10% of a cow. And the idea is that they give these animals to these poor people in countries around the world, and then these people are supposedly trained in, they say it, zero grazing practices, which they claim on their website means the animals only eat leftovers from table scraps, which really makes no sense at all, because anyone who knows anything, when you go into these poor countries, and I've been into Africa, everybody grazes their sheep and their cows and their chickens. Everybody lets them out in the open. And actually, because they're overgrazing the lands right now, they are actually going into protected national parks. And sadly, the rangers turn a blind eye because they see these poor villagers with these animals who need to eat. And if the villagers aren't able to graze their animals in the parks, they're going to lose money on their cattle.
Right. So, and what's wrong with grazing?
Well, we all know what's wrong with grazing. We have the worst grazing record right here in the United States, where cattle overgrazes land, depletes it completely, and we're actually seeing land it can't self-sustain itself, so we end up killing off the land, and it becomes dead land.
Right, it becomes barren, and that's desertification. Then how will they have their, then how are they going to have their food?
Right, so basically all the problems that we're seeing, it's well documented that animal agriculture is a leading cause of environmental destruction and global warming. And so to further promote that in small villages and in poor countries around the country, it's just the wrong way to go about helping these individuals. And sadly, so many well-intentioned people donate to Heifer thinking they're helping poor people, but aren't really aware of how bad this is. I mean, just from the environmental aspect of it, it's horrible, but we're not even considering the animal suffering. I mean, we're just encouraging, the Heifer International encourages people to eat animals, to eat animal products, and we know there's no such thing as humane slaughter.
Which means all the animals shipped off by Heifer are going to wind up being murdered.
That's right. Eventually they will. That's right. The ones they're using for dairy and eggs and that sort of thing get used and used and used until they're all used up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think one of the saddest things is we're talking about people who have very little. And we all know who's going to suffer when hard times hit these folks. I mean, it's going to be the animals. And to suggest that these people are able to give these animals a good life or something like that is just ridiculous, because we're talking about people who have very little, and now we're making them dependent on animal agriculture for their well-being, and so it's really self-defeating, actually.
Right. I mean, it's going to require squandering water resources. Well, you know, a microcosm of all the problems we've created with animal agriculture. I mean, the amount of water that'll be required. Also, there's the question of lactose intolerance, and these are people of color, and so they will be made ill by these animal products and animal foods. One would presume Bill Gates has access to the Internet and would know better?
It's sad. I mean, it's really sad. He has such huge power and ability to make a big difference and to be supporting this sort of thing. I mean, we've seen a lot of celebrities supporting it as well. And we really need to start focusing on this right now. I do not see any major group with a concerted effort to address this horrible, growing problem with Heifer International. In fact, because Heifer International is so successful, raising tens of millions of dollars this year alone, Vegfam, which has traditionally been a really good organization that you could donate to and, like, say, donate, $100 and buy a windmill for, a poor village or something, they have now introduced in the last 2 years a similar buy an animal program. So we're seeing it expand to other organizations because of the success of Heifer, and we really need to start addressing this. So, I mean, that's something that why you and I are talking today. This is something that we need to start being aware of, because it is just growing in popularity, and it's obviously going down the wrong path. But, in addition, the promotion of this animal agriculture in these countries is creating more problems for wildlife. And especially, we could take Africa, for instance, although it applies to Asia as well. We have more and more conflicts with the grazing villagers and wildlife, so like hyenas and lions and other animals that then attack the cattle end up getting killed because the villagers are trying to protect their investment in the cattle. So, I mean, the negative impact goes beyond the waste of water and the waste of food resources, but it also negatively affects the wildlife as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an important thing, because so many of us are, or so many groups are trying to help wildlife in these range countries, and yet nobody's addressing Heifer.
Heifer International makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense as a charity. It's the gift of animal suffering, disease, and environmental devastation. Out of Arkansas, where there is a lot of animal suffering there. I mean, I don't know. So, what are you suggesting? You're just suggesting people not support Heifer?
Absolutely. I would urge everybody to not only not support Heifer, but be vocal and let your friends and family know that, hey, if you've heard of this Heifer International, I urge you not to support it, because it's not helping people, and it's not helping animals, and it's not helping the environment, and there's a better way to do it. But I think the most important thing is speaking up about it, because once we start it by word of mouth and people start becoming aware of it, and I think that's the beginning of getting it, a real campaign going, so that we can educate people that this is not a solution. This is actually contributing to the problems of, the world, and there's a better way.